Why do some people collapse under pressure while others seem to grow sharper, colder, and more powerful with every blow life throws at them? You felt it. You felt that moment when everything crashes, when they betray you, when your efforts fall flat, when the world laughs at your ambition, and deep inside a voice whispers, "Oh, you're not built for this." That voice isn't just self-doubt. It's the echo of a mind that's been left untrained, unguarded, and unprepared for war. Because make no mistake, life is a battlefield. And the first thing that breaks in most people is the mind. Look around. Most people live with mental glass instead of steel. One harsh word and they shatter. One failure and they spiral. Their thinking is not their own. It's a patchwork of opinions, fears, and noise. They seek comfort, not clarity. They react instead of reason. They drown in feelings and call it honesty. But here's the truth. A fragile mind is not innocent. It's dangerous. Why? It's easily manipulated, easily controlled. And worst of all, it becomes its own jailer. When your mind is weak, you don't need enemies. You destroy yourself from the inside. That's why this matters. Because if you don't take control of your mind, someone else will. The world is full of people waiting to program your thoughts, exploit your insecurities, and twist your emotions to their advantage. They'll make you feel guilty for thinking differently, make you feel ashamed for wanting more, make you feel wrong for being strong. But what if you could stop all of that? What if you could build a mind so sharp, so clear, so unbreakable, that it scares them? Not because you hurt anyone, but because they can't influence you, can't manipulate you, can't shake you. Imagine waking up and not being haunted by doubt. Imagine facing betrayal without losing yourself. Imagine being calm in chaos, focused in noise, fearless in judgment. That kind of mind is not a gift. It's built deliberately, daily, through war against weakness, not comfort. That's what we're here for. To show you how to build the kind of mindset that doesn't just survive the storm, it becomes the storm. The kind of mindset that doesn't beg to be accepted. It commands respect without a word. That kind of power isn't reserved for the elite. It's forged by anyone willing to suffer the pain of transformation. Stay with this, because if you've ever been broken, overlooked, disrespected, betrayed, this is your redemption. This is how you turn every moment of pain into pure fuel. This is how you stop being the victim of your own thoughts and become the master of them. Don't just seek motivation, seek mental warfare. Every second you listen, you step closer to becoming the kind of person they can't predict, can't provoke, and can't control. This is your edge. This is how you build a mind so strong, it terrifies them. They fear what they cannot control. And nothing is more uncontrollable than a mind that sees the world for what it truly is, not what it's supposed to be, not what they wish it was, but what it actually is. Cold, calculated, and ruled by advantage. This is where most people fail. They cling to fantasies. They think life will reward their kindness, that loyalty will be returned, that honesty will protect them. But Machiavelli didn't see the world through dreams. He saw it through results. And he knew the only people who win are the ones who stop lying to themselves. That's where real strength begins. Not in arrogance, not in blind confidence, but in ruthless clarity. You stop confusing emotion with truth. You stop expecting fairness from people who only care about power. You stop giving the benefit of the doubt to those who've already shown you who they are. The average mind is fogged by feelings. It wants to believe people are good because the truth is too hard to swallow. But a strong mind doesn't run from reality. It studies it, accepts it, masters it, not with bitterness, but with precision. It doesn't hate people. It understands them, and understanding gives you control. Because once you stop projecting your intentions onto others, once you stop assuming everyone thinks like you gain something most people never have: leverage. You begin to see hidden motives behind smiles. You begin to hear the manipulation behind kind words. You begin to sense the fear behind fake confidence. And when you see the world like this, not through illusion, but through design, you stop being a target. You become a strategist. That is what makes them afraid. Not your size, not your words, but your vision. Because vision is power, and power, when unshaken by emotion, becomes unstoppable. This is the shift. From hoping to calculating, from reacting to planning, from trusting blindly to observing deeply. This doesn't make you cold, it makes you aware. It makes you lethal, not because you attack, but because you cannot be deceived. You no longer fall for pretty words. You no longer need validation. You no longer chase. You lead calmly, quietly, completely. And when they realize they can't guilt you, can't flatter you, can't predict you, they fear you, not because you harm them, but because your mind is free. Free from illusions, free from weakness, free from their influence. That kind of freedom is terrifying to the average person. It reminds them how trapped they really are. That's why they try to shame you back into softness. They call it ruthless. They call it cold. But it's not. It's clarity. And clarity is the foundation of dominance. If you want to rise, this is your first transformation. Not physical, not emotional, but mental. Train yourself to see with brutal honesty. Tear down every illusion. Burn the mask of hope. And stand in truth, calm, calculated, and absolutely unshakable, because the mind that sees all fears nothing. Once your mind is clear, you must make it still. Because clarity without control is chaos. You can see everything, but if your emotions still own you, you will act without power. You'll still lash out when disrespected, still shrink when intimidated, still freeze when things go wrong. Power doesn't live in what you see. It lives in how you respond. And most people don't respond. They react instantly, blindly, emotionally. That's the mind they've been trained to live with. One that burns through energy, loses focus, and breaks down when it matters most. That's why emotional mastery is non-negotiable. Not for comfort, not for inner peace, but for survival. If you can't control what happens inside you, you'll always be controlled by what happens around you. And that is the greatest weakness. Because the world will always provoke. People will always test you. Enemies will always poke at your pride, your fear, your anger. They'll try to make you explain yourself, defend yourself, lose your composure. And if your emotions are still in charge, they'll win without lifting a finger. A strong mind doesn't get pulled, it chooses. It feels the heat rise, but doesn't act. It hears the insult, but doesn't flinch. It sees the trap and walks right past it, not because it's numb, but because it's trained. Your emotions were never meant to lead. They were meant to serve. Fear alerts you, but it doesn't command you. Anger sharpens you, but it doesn't own you. Pain fuels you, but it doesn't stop you. When you master that hierarchy, when reason rules and emotion obeys, you become something different, not robotic. Not disconnected, but dangerous, because most people are still stuck in emotional slavery, still triggered by memories, by opinions, by rejection, still defined by what hurt them. Still making decisions based on fear of discomfort. They avoid confrontation, not because it's wise, but because it's scary. They stay silent, not out of strategy, but out of fear, and they call it kindness. But the truth is, they've never faced the storm inside. So when life gets loud, they fall apart. That's not you anymore. You're not here to be liked. You're here to be in control. You're not here to avoid discomfort. You're here to dominate it. You're not here to pretend everything's fine. You're here to face everything and still move forward. Calm is a weapon. Composure is a shield. And silence is your strength. When you can walk through chaos with a still mind, nothing can touch you. They can throw insults. They can doubt you. They can betray you. But they can't move you. That's what makes you terrifying. Not your size, not your words, not your reputation. But the fact that they can't provoke a single reaction, that you respond with precision, that your emotions serve your mission, not sabotage it, that your power isn't loud, it's absolute. The world belongs to those who remain calm while others fall apart. Train that calm, and you train to lead. You train to win. You train to rise. Calm without awareness is just another form of blindness. You cannot master yourself fully until you learn to master how you see. Most people walk through life blindfolded by belief. They don't see the trap because they assume good intentions. They don't see the threat because they crave connection. They don't see the enemy because they call everyone a friend. And by the time they realize the truth, they're already bleeding, not from the blade, but from their own blindness, because the enemy was never outside. It was always their refusal to see. To build a mind that terrifies, you must cut through illusion like a blade through fog. You stop expecting loyalty from the disloyal. You stop handing trust to the untrustworthy. You stop assigning virtue to those who have none. And instead of hoping people change, you begin watching who they already are, not what they say, not what they promise, but what they do when no one's watching. The strong mind doesn't cling to fantasy, it reads reality with precision, and when it sees the truth, it moves, quietly, strategically. Without mercy, That kind of clarity is earned through discipline. It takes daily mental warfare. You question every thought. You examine every assumption. You strip away every comfort that blinds you. No more sugar-coated lies. No more noble illusions. No more pretending that fairness exists. You realize life is not about what's right. It's about what works. And once that realization hits you deep enough, your vision sharpens. Your mind stops drifting, and your steps become exact. They won't understand it. They'll call you paranoid, distant, cold. But what they call cold is actually control. What they call distant is awareness. You no longer play their games because you've learned to watch the board. And while they chase temporary emotions, you study permanent patterns. While they beg for validation, you track intentions. While they lose sleep over opinions, you sleep like a king because you know exactly who's who, what's what, and where everything is going. There's no fear in truth. Once you see people clearly, you no longer depend on them. Once you see reality clearly, you no longer resist it. Once you see your own weakness clearly, you no longer deny it, you destroy it. And that's where your dominance begins, in silence, in solitude, in cold observation. Because when everyone else is distracted by noise, your clarity becomes your advantage. You see the game, the players, and the outcome before they even move. That's why they fear you. Not because you fight, but because you don't need to. Not because you shout, but because you don't speak at all. Not because you attack, but because your silence says everything. They feel your detachment. They sense your distance, and deep down they know they cannot reach you, deceive you, or break you, because you see through it all. And a man who sees clearly cannot be controlled. He can only be obeyed or feared. When your vision sharpens and your emotions are mastered, there's one final enemy left. Distraction. Not the loud kind, the silent kind. The endless noise disguised as connection. The subtle chaos that comes from being constantly surrounded. Most people don't even realize it, but they're addicted to noise. Addicted to validation, to chatter, to being seen. They confuse presence with purpose, popularity with power. They drown in other people's opinions and wonder why they can't hear their own mind. Solitude terrifies them, not because it's empty, but because in silence they'd have to face who they really are. But if you want to build a mind that terrifies, you must learn to stand alone. Not once, not sometimes, but consistently, not out of bitterness but strategy, because being alone isn't weakness, it's resistance. Every minute you choose solitude, you are refusing the programming, refusing the distraction, refusing the softening that comes from constant exposure to weak minds. You are separating. Not to isolate, but to refine. You are cutting yourself off from the noise to build clarity so deep, nothing external can shake it. Power is built in silence. Precision is forged in solitude. When no one's watching, when there's no applause, when there's no one to impress, that's when you train the hardest. That's when the real work happens. While they're out seeking comfort in crowds, you're sharpening your edge alone. And that edge is what sets you apart. Because every time you step away from the world, you return with a mind sharper, stronger, colder, and more controlled than before. Solitude teaches you how to need nothing, and a man who needs nothing becomes invincible. They can't lure you with attention. They can't bribe you with praise. They can't bait you with distraction. You've broken the addiction. Your validation is internal. Your clarity is internal. Your discipline is internal. That is terrifying to those who still crave the world's approval. Because you remind them that true strength doesn't beg to be seen. It builds itself in the shadows. They will try to pull you back. They will say you've changed, that you've become distant, and you have, because closeness to mediocrity is contamination. You don't train in a room full of weakness and expect to come out powerful. You separate to rise. You detach to see. You isolate to evolve. And in doing so, you become something rare, someone who does not depend, someone who does not seek, someone who does not seek, someone who creates presence by absence. And when you return, you are no longer one of them. You are something else entirely. Your silence will confuse them, your absence will disturb them, and your presence, when it arrives, will dominate without effort. Because solitude didn't break you, it built you. It burned away the noise. And what remains is something terrifyingly pure, a mind untouched by distraction, unshaken by opinion, and completely loyal to its mission. That's the mind they fear, the mind that doesn't just lead but moves without needing permission. When the world no longer controls your mind, you must take full control of your actions. That's where most people collapse. They think mental strength is about thoughts and awareness alone. But if your actions remain weak, undisciplined, and impulsive, then all your clarity becomes wasted potential. Strength is not proven by what you know, it's proven by what you do, especially when no one is watching. Discipline is not glamorous, it's quiet, repetitive, unforgiving, and that's exactly why it's feared, because it demands everything and gives no instant reward. But over time, it creates a force no one can deny. The average person waits to feel motivated. They wait for the perfect moment, the perfect mood, the perfect spark. And in that waiting, they rot. Motivation is a liar. It flatters you, then disappears. It shows up when life is easy and abandons you when things get hard. But discipline? Discipline is ruthless. It doesn't care how you feel. It doesn't ask for your permission. It demands consistency, not emotion. And that's what builds the kind of mind that shakes people. One that shows up every day without needing applause or inspiration. Every action you take is a vote for the identity you're building. When you rise early instead of sleeping in, you cast a vote for strength. When you train when tired, study when bored, build when others rest, you are engraving power into your mind. You are hardening it, shaping it, strengthening it to the point where quitting becomes unthinkable. Not because it's impossible, but because it's beneath you. Because the person you've become would rather suffer forward than rot in comfort. This is how real dominance is born. Not in grand gestures, but in small, brutal choices repeated without emotion. You eat when it's time. You train when it's scheduled. You work when it's required. No compromise. No exceptions, not because it's easy, but because it's the only way to build a life that no one can steal from you. The strong mind is forged in boredom, in pain, in repetition, and that's why most never reach it. Because they confuse discipline with punishment, when in truth it is liberation. You don't need to be the smartest, the fastest, or the most talented. You just need to be the one who shows up no matter what. The one who doesn't negotiate with weakness. The one who keeps going long after everyone else has stopped. That's what makes you dangerous. That's what makes you different. And when people see that you're not moved by convenience or emotion, they fear you because they know they can't match that level of control. Not over circumstances, but over self. Build the discipline, hold the line, and become the kind of mind that no setback can derail, no failure can discourage, and no obstacle can break. When you stop waiting to feel ready and start acting like it's your duty, you stop living like a slave. You start moving like a force, relentless, cold, unstoppable, unstoppable. Discipline makes you powerful, but silence makes you untouchable. Most people feel an uncontrollable urge to explain themselves, to speak on everything, to prove their worth with words. They chase recognition like a starving dog hunts for scraps. But a powerful mind doesn't beg to be understood. It doesn't over-explain. It doesn't share its next move. The more you speak, the more you give away. The more you reveal, the more control you surrender. Silence is not weakness. It is a weapon, and in the hands of the disciplined, it becomes lethal. They want to read you, predict you, manipulate you. But when you speak less, they are left guessing. They don't know where you stand. They can't track your motives. They can't twist your words because there are none. Silence removes their power. Every time you withhold your thoughts, your emotions, your plans, you gain leverage. You stop broadcasting your weaknesses. You stop leaking your vision. You keep your power inside where it builds, where it sharpens, where it grows into something untouchable. A quiet mind is a controlled mind, and a controlled mind cannot be provoked. They try to insult you, but you say nothing. They try to bait you, but you stay calm. They try to question you, but you give no answer. That's what terrifies them. Not rage, not retaliation, but the silence that says, you are beneath my response. That kind of control sends a message louder than any words ever could. It tells them you have mastered yourself, that you answer to no one, that your focus cannot be broken. The world is addicted to noise. People overshare out of fear. They believe if they aren't constantly seen, they'll be forgotten. But true power doesn't beg for attention. It moves in darkness and then strikes without warning. You don't tell people your goals. You show them the results. You don't argue about your value. You embody it in silence. You don't explain your distance. You let your absence speak for itself. This level of detachment forces people to pay attention, not because you ask them to, but because they have no choice. When your mind is silent, your actions become louder. You walk differently. You respond differently. You carry weight without words. And in that silence, people start to question themselves. They replay what they said. They wonder what you think. They fear what you're planning. That fear is power. It creates space. It commands respect. It makes people cautious around you, not because you threaten them, but because they realize they cannot reach you. Say less. Move smarter. Let your silence disturb the world, not by design, but by discipline. Every word you don't speak, every emotion you don't reveal, every plan you don't share, adds pressure, it builds tension, and eventually they break under what they cannot understand. That's how you become untouchable, not by shouting, not by explaining, but by mastering the art of saying nothing and letting that silence speak for you. When silence becomes your language, your presence becomes a message. You no longer need to convince, explain, or persuade. You walk into a room and shift the atmosphere. Not because of what you say, but because of what you've become. A mind so composed, so unreadable, so disciplined. It creates tension without effort. That tension is power. The unspoken pressure of someone who cannot be moved, cannot be manipulated, and cannot be underestimated. You don't demand respect, you embody it. You don't ask for space. People give it to you instinctively because they feel what you've built inside. But presence without foundation is empty. You don't earn this edge by pretending. You earn it through pain, through isolation, through relentless internal war. Every sacrifice you made, every time you chose discipline over comfort, every time you walked alone when it would have been easier to follow, that's what built the force they now feel. A fortress was constructed where others built nothing. And now that fortress stands tall inside your mind, impenetrable, unforgiving, immovable. This is the structure they fear, not physical power, not wealth, but mental fortitude that has been forged in silence and refined through suffering. When they realize they can't break you, they begin to fear you. For door, not because you threaten them, but because your self-possession reflects their lack of it. Your restraint reveals their impulsiveness. Your stillness exposes their chaos. You become a mirror, and most people cannot face their own reflection. So they retreat, they gossip, they judge because it's easier than evolving. It's easier than doing the inner work. Let them. Let their discomfort grow. Let your presence become the proof of everything they could never discipline themselves to become. You are no longer one of them. You don't move through life looking for comfort. You move with purpose. Every step calculated, every word measured, every reaction mastered. There's no panic in your decisions, no hesitation in your judgment. You know who you are, you know where you're going, and nothing they say, think, or feel can interfere with that. That's real freedom. The freedom that doesn't need approval, the kind that can walk alone without fear, the kind that makes noise without sound. And in this final stage, you no longer even care if they fear you. That's not the goal. It's simply the consequence. You've built a mind so clear, so still, so disciplined, it exists outside their reach. You don't seek to intimidate, but your existence does. Because you've done what most people never will. You've broken the chains. You've shut out the noise. You've endured the silence. You've crushed the weakness, and now you live from the center of power, calm, focused, detached. This is the mind that terrifies, not because it attacks, but because it cannot be invaded, because it holds the line, because it bows to nothing, and because it does not move for anyone. This is the mind they pretend doesn't exist, because if they acknowledged it, they'd be forced to confront their own weakness. They hide behind noise, behind excuses, behind masks of fake confidence. But deep down, they know. They know when they stand in front of someone who cannot be shaken. They know when they're in the presence of someone who doesn't flinch, doesn't explain, doesn't seek validation. They feel the weight of a mind that has outgrown approval, outgrown comfort, outgrown fear. That weight crushes their illusions, and that's what makes it dangerous. Well, you've built something rare. A mental fortress so unyielding it becomes a threat by its very existence. You don't react to pressure, you apply it. You don't chase these lows, adjust to your pace. And you didn't become this by accident. You bled for it. You suffered. Low. You stripped away every weakness until only the core remained. Now that core is unbreakable. No noise can shake it. No betrayal can reach it. No praise can corrupt it. It is you. Refined, hardened, silent, and exact. You didn't adapt to the world. You made the world adapt to you. You walk differently now. Not faster, not louder, just heavier. Because every step you take is backed by self-respect forged through war. And they feel it. They feel the discipline behind your silence, the pain behind your calm, the precision behind your restraint. They sense that you don't need to speak to dominate, that you don't need to perform to be powerful. You've become the opposite of what this weak world rewards. And that is why you stand out without trying. Most people wear their ambition on their faces, scream their dreams to the sky, and beg for someone to validate their path. But you're past that. You no longer need to announce your moves. Your results do it for you. Your presence reminds them that power isn't in words, it's in ownership. You own your mind. You own your time. You own your space. And when someone can't be bought, baited, or broken, they become a problem for everyone still pretending. You are the proof that it can be done, that a mind can be transformed into something no one can touch. You are the evidence that pain can be turned into clarity, that silence can become a strategy, and that discipline can evolve into dominance. You are the reality they've spent their lives avoiding. And that's why you don't need to fight for attention. Your very existence is disruption. Your energy is confrontation. Your focus is rebellion. Your stillness is pressure. This is the power you carry now, not just in thought, but in presence, not just in strategy, but in identity. You've become the exception, the one who broke free, the one who did the work. The one who does not shake, does not chase, and does not bow. And now, whether they admire you or resent you, one thing remains the same. They will never forget you, because the mind you've built terrifies them.